All right, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jordan Hardgrave. Today we're going to be reading an email from a business owner who's struggling with some severe anxiety. It's really compromising their ability to successfully run their business. This video is for all people, so even if you're not a business owner, make sure to watch this, but especially if you run a business, you're an entrepreneur, this especially is going to be relevant for you. And I'll also add that, for the last 6 years, I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of business owners. They're probably some of my favorite clients to work with, just simply because I really relate with a lot of the struggles that they have to go through, work-life balance, time management, just things constantly changing. I got into this just to help people, but I had to learn the business side of things in order to be able to pay my bills, especially whenever I became CEO and had a team. Now it's not just, my livelihood that's at stake. It's also the people that work for me and their families, and just making sure that you have enough energy to be able to help people. And it's just a lot. And you also usually wear many hats, especially before you can hire people. It's very, very difficult. Elon Musk says that, being a business owner is like eating glass and staring into the abyss, which is one of my favorite quotes. But anyway, so I'm especially passionate to help business owners. I'm passionate to help all people, but I really do understand the challenges that business owners face. And then you throw on, if you're dealing with anxiety and panic attacks, things that I'm very blessed to say I don't deal with anymore, it just makes it impossible. Being a business owner is hard enough. You've already got the cards stacked against you. The statistics are like 50% of small businesses fail within the first 5 years. So there's already a 50% chance of failure within the first 5 years. And then you throw in having anxiety or panic, or maybe you're even in a trauma state. You've got memory issues, DPDR, time feels distorted, all that stuff. It can be really, really, really devastating and end the business much quicker. I always tell business owners, I know it's a long intro before we get into the email, you are your business, right? That's why you should never feel guilty for prioritizing self-care, because if you go down, your business goes down. The more that you invest in yourself and prioritize self-care, the more that your business is going to be successful, right? Very, very important. So I never thought anxiety would hit me this hard, especially now that I run my own business. You'd think managing a successful company would boost confidence, but lately I feel like I'm trapped under an avalanche of constant fear and pressure. It starts the moment I wake up. My mind immediately races with worst case scenarios. Did I forget to follow up on that major client? What if a tiny mistake derails months of work? The fear of failure is relentless. By the time I get to the office, I think they meant to say, my chest feels tight and my heart won't stop racing. Sometimes it feels like I'm on the verge of a heart attack, even though I know it's just panic. It's hard to breathe, hard to think. Yeah, I actually just spoke with a business owner that actually became a client of mine in my Rise program. And part of what caused him to reach out to work with me is he actually was in front of an investor. So he and a couple other people were investing something to do with real estate, multiple millions of dollars. And he actually had a panic attack in the first meeting with this new investor. And I'm pretty sure that it ended up making the deal fall through. And he's like, dude, this isn't me. He's like, I have always been that guy that's been, happy-go-lucky, energetic, resilient, the people that are the person that other people look to. And, like, this isn't reflective of who I really am. But he said, I've muscled my way through long enough, and something has got to give, and I've got to make a change. And so it can really, really affect you if you're having panic attacks as a business owner in so many ways. You said running a business means juggling endless decisions, but now each one feels like life or death. Yeah, it's like being a business owner is hard enough, especially if you're a CEO, you've got a team that's working for you. A lot of what you're going to be doing is making decisions. And if you're in a bad state, it's going to make it very difficult to make the right decisions, because your thinking brain is not where it should be. The prefrontal cortex, whenever your body is full of anxiety, your body is not prioritizing thinking, your body is prioritizing survival. And so logical, critical, creative, contextual thinking are greatly diminished in functionality. And also, even just things that are really not that big of a deal in terms of decision making are going to feel like such a big deal, because whenever you're in an anxious state, your brain becomes very catastrophic. I remember one time This was a long, long time ago. I think it was like, was it AT&T? But anyway, I was outside of, I think, the AT&T store, and I got a new iPhone, and I remember putting the cover on, and you know how there's like the little, it's like the screen protector slash dust protector, whatever. And basically, I remember there was a little piece of a speck of dust that got underneath the cover, and I literally felt like that was the most important thing in the entire world. I felt like it was a life or death situation. I literally was having like a panic attack sitting in the car because of a piece of dust. And now on my phone, I mean, you know, looking at it right now, I mean, there's like a little crack in it, not the actual screen, but the screen protector. You know, I can see a little dust in there, and it doesn't bother me at all. But at the time, the smallest little things, the smallest stressors were the biggest stressors. And this is something called your window of tolerance. It's basically your ability to handle stress without it leading into hypervigilance, which is anxiety and panic, or hypovigilance, which is whenever you hit an overwhelm point in your nervous system, a trauma state. And then that's whenever some really, really just nasty, severe symptoms show up. And so your window is really small right now. And that just simply means that your ability to handle stress without it causing a ton of stress is very small right now. You said it's exhausting. Meetings used to be second nature, but now I find myself overthinking every word, wondering if I've said something wrong. I scan everyone's faces looking for signs that I've messed up. I've started to avoid situations where I have to talk in front of the team, delegating more just to avoid the pressure. Absolutely. I remember I worked with this guy. He was an investment banker, and he was like the number one investment banker in his whole region. I mean, this guy was just like, multi millionaire, had tons of awards on his wall, and highly esteemed. But behind closed doors, he was severely struggling with panic attacks to the point that he didn't want to go on Zoom calls, because on Zoom calls, he felt trapped. He felt like he couldn't escape. And I'll never forget, towards the end of me working with him, he was like, dude, like, I actually now look forward to Zoom calls. I love them. I'm fully calm and present. And it was just so rewarding to get to work with him. But anyway, yeah. But the problem with avoidance is the more that you avoid, the more that your brain thinks that what you're avoiding is a lion trying to eat you. And so it may temporarily kind of mitigate the stress, but ultimately, number one, you're giving up the thing that you're avoiding, which in this case is necessary for your job. But then number two, in the long term, the more that you avoid that thing, the more that your brain is going to think that there's danger around you, and it's ultimately going to keep you more stressed out. You said, I've started to avoid situations where I talk in front of a team, delegating more just to avoid the pressure. So, I mean, delegation is actually very, very important, generally speaking. I always tell the business owners that I work with, you need to be working on delegating, automating, or eliminating things. And that's a lot of what I do, especially as CEO, is like, hey, what can I, train somebody else to do so I can really focus on making the major decisions of how this thing is going to go, and helping my clients, and creating, and, all of those things that I'm supposed to be working on. But if it's something that actually you don't need to delegate, but you're just delegating it because it makes you so anxious, that right there is a very, very, very dark road. Because if you have a skill set to do that thing, and instead you're delegating it to somebody that doesn't have anywhere near the skill set, that can really, really hurt your business. I didn't mean to swallow ice. Hold on. You said, I've tried everything: breathing exercises, meditation, even those power of positive thinking books. They help for a minute, but the anxiety always creeps back. Okay, so breathing exercises aren't bad. Meditation isn't bad. Positive thinking isn't bad. But recovery from anxiety doesn't happen because you throw a bunch of random positive activities at your nervous system. This is what I tell, especially kind of the high performance clients that I work with. They're usually people that just have this stack of positive things that they're doing. They're waking up early. They're doing ice baths. They're doing Wim Hof breathing. They're doing sauna sessions. They're doing 4-7-8 breathing. They're, buying great mattresses or expensive mattresses to help their sleep. They're doing red light therapy. They're doing this thing and this thing. They're usually very healthy with their diet. And in their mind, they're like, wait a second, I'm doing all this healthy stuff. How could I still be anxious? That doesn't make any sense. Well, it's because anxiety is really fight or flight response, which is your body preparing for a threat that doesn't exist. And recovery looks like doing things that intentionally communicate safety to your nervous system. So just because you do these things that you mentioned doesn't mean that it's conveying safety, or maybe those things do convey safety, but you're not doing enough things that communicate safety. And I'll also tell you, you want to know the number one thing that communicates safety to the nervous system? A safe person. Co-regulation, working with somebody that can help build hope in you, relate with you, calm you down, that's up to 45% of recovery, according to studies that have been replicated again and again and again. Humans heal humans, people heal people. That's why sometimes people will have tried things for decades and then they start working with me and then they're able to see results within a couple weeks. A big part of that is just because of the co-regulation that comes from working with somebody that actually understands what they're going through. But then not only that, I'm also specifically teaching people things that are designed to communicate safety to the nervous system and not just a bunch of random positive activities. So anyway, you said it's like this invisible weight that I carry, always there, making it impossible to enjoy even the smallest victories. I should be proud of what I've built, but I can't shake the feeling that it's all going to come crashing down at any moment. So number one, I mean, that's a fear that every successful person has, especially every business owner has, is like, well, what if I lose everything? So that's not necessarily specific to your state. But if it's all consuming and it's all you think about, that is actually abnormal. That shouldn't be dominating your mind all the time. And again, because your window of tolerance for stress is so low, your brain gives you that intrusive thought, what if I lost everything? And it's not just a thought that you can be like, what can I do to avoid this? Or, see a positive in it, things like that. It's like all consuming and something that you think about all the time. For example, I used to work at this call center, and I remember every single day I was terrified that I was going to get an email that I was fired. And it's very funny because I was one of the most successful people at this whole call center. In fact, I remember one morning I went in to look for an email for me to be fired, and I won this award. I forget what it was called, the VIP award or something. I was like the number 2 person in the whole call center out of like hundreds of people. Or maybe it was like in the program that I was in the call center. But anyway, it was a lot of people, and I was one of the top people. I got to go in a limousine. I got to take a whole day off work. I got a plaque. And yet I was still constantly fearing that I was going to get fired. So do you see how whenever you're in a state of anxiety, your thinking brain shuts down? Part of that is critical and contextual thinking. So even though the context is that there's no evidence to support this, because you don't have logical, critical, creative, contextual thinking online very much, it's very easy for you to think opposite of what reality is. So you said the worst part, I feel isolated. I can't tell my employees. I need to be a strong leader, right? I can't let them see the cracks. Even my family doesn't really get it. I tried explaining it to my partner once, but they just said, you're doing great, just don't overthink it. Yeah, I mean, the people around you are usually going to try to give you very general advice because they don't truly understand what you're going through. Sometimes they do understand what you're going through. And if you can find somebody that does, that's awesome. But more often than not, they'll just be like, hey, like just snap out of it, or just don't think about it, or just take a walk, or maybe you just need more sleep, which actually more sleep is always a good thing. But, just, drink some water. And hey, hydration, very, very, very important. In fact, I think most people are probably dehydrated. It leads to all kinds of issues. But what I'm saying is they're going to overly simplify it. And they love you. Usually they're trying to help, but they usually do more damage than good. If only it were that simple. Anxiety doesn't care about logic. Exactly. I wish I could find something that worked long-term. Maybe, but who has the time when you're drowning in deadlines? I've considered medication, but the idea of depending on a pill scares me. What if I'm not myself anymore? So I can't tell you to take medication or not take medication as a non-licensed professional. That's between you and a doctor. But I will say there is a book called Lost Connections by Johann Hari. He's a British journalist. And he's got tons of research on there and studies that have been done concerning anti-anxiety and antidepressant medication that will absolutely blow your mind. And I will never, ever see those meds the same after looking at a lot of those studies. For example, particularly with some depression meds, there were all these studies that showed that they were effective, but it turns out that less than 2% of the positive effects that people were experiencing actually had to do with the medications. 97% were essentially placebo effect. And they can come with, different side effects. And sometimes people have a paradoxical reaction where they have more anxiety or depression. Again, I'm not going to tell you to not take it or to take it. That is completely between you and a doctor or you and a licensed mental professional. But I will say, educate yourself. Look into it for sure. I will also say I never liked the idea of being on meds just because I'm hesitant to even take Tylenol sometimes because I'm just one of those old-fashioned people that, I like to, just be responsible for how I feel. I don't like the idea of something else changing how I feel. But anyway, every day is a battle between keeping the business afloat and managing the storm inside my head. Some days I win, but other days I'm not so sure. Anyway, just needed to get this off my chest. Thanks for listening. So, and they said, all the best, Alex. Okay, so your name's Alex. So, Alex, thank you so much for sharing that. And, this is fixable, it's reversible, but we have to get off the random positive activity bandwagon. That is going to make you feel like you're moving forward, but you're actually not doing things that are specific enough to communicate safety to the nervous system. And I call it the hamster wheel method because there's a lot of activity and movement, but you're not getting anywhere. You're stuck. And I come across this all the time, especially with business owners or high performance, highly successful people. If you would like to learn what the things are that you need to do to communicate safety to your nervous system, I've created a free masterclass for you. There's going to be a link below. There's also a link to book a call with me. Somebody from my team would love to speak with you, see if we're able to help you with mentorship, and we can specifically help you do things that will communicate safety to the nervous system. But regardless, watch that masterclass. It's going to give you the basics of the things that you need to do. That is it. Make sure to like, subscribe, share this video, comment something below, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. Talk to you real soon.